This is Broad Radio. For you, by you. Broad Radio. Here for more.
Hi, Joe. We made it. Oh, I can't wait to hear more about that.
Broad Radio is proudly supported by Chemist Warehouse. Chemist Warehouse, great savings every day.
Never in doubt. Mhm. Fantastic. I love everything you've done. This is very ambitious. When you called me a little while ago, I thought, wow, this woman is nuts. How are we ever going to do it? We're in different houses for starters. There's all the technology to overcome, and but here we are, and I'm very excited because, as you know, my normal world for the past 25 years has been sport. I have been starved of female company. And hanging out with women is good for the soul.
Yes.
So thank you for inviting me along on this adventure.
It really is good for the soul. And the other thing is, and I want to establish that we are starting something completely new here, and we're sort of experimenting as we go, because that's what a startup is basically. But that I love podcasts and I love. Why not kind of bring it together? I mean, you are hearing it to a degree, but not as much as I thought that we could. You know, let's have more women talking about sport and embracing women's sport. Let's talk about women who are doing incredible things in science and leadership, and let's hear more from women and their stories. So that was the idea behind Broad Radio.
There's an obvious fun side to all of it, but there's also so many important conversations that we need to have. And I found in my own life, as I get a bit older, I can play it less safe. I mean, in my 20s and 30s, I'm so determined to carve out a career. And in my case, it was in a male dominated field. I didn't want to put a foot wrong. And, I stayed within the boundaries and I didn't want to rock the boat. Whereas now I feel like I'm ready to have bigger conversations. I want us to leave a mark. This is the platform to have these conversations. And, let's be honest, we live in a society where, things still aren't equal. So there's a lot of work to be done. And it's great that, I get to hang out with women, have these conversations and have a laugh as well. So I'm really looking forward to it.
Yes, I really love what you say about leaving a mark. But I do think, though, Ange, the older we get, whilst we may care less about what people think, most certainly, I think also we start to lose ourselves at times. We have children, we forget who we are as we raise those children, then our children leave home. And, you know, there are lots of things that mean as we head into retirement, we might need to try and remember who we are. And that's what this conversation is always about, lifting women up and hearing women's stories.
Yeah, I love it. There are different challenges associated with different times in your life. There's no doubt about that. So it's great to be with like-minded women and sharing these conversations and learning from each other. And, you know, having worked with men for so long, they didn't always understand my humour. Now I've got my audience.
Oh, I get you, Ange.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes, I very much do know what you're saying. I have to say that because we're all about lifting people up here, and so it's taken a lot of people to get us to this moment, and there are a lot of people behind the scenes who are working really hard, continue to do so. We've got Ro, who's my right-hand woman, but she is to my left at the moment. She's chief button pusher over there.
Good morning.
Oh, hi there, Ro. We would be lost without you. She might be a voice of God at any one point, Ange. We always need someone like that.
Yeah, Ro, we love you.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, good on you, Ro. You've been an absolute lifesaver to me. And also we have got Cess, who is our producer, who, if you were to call the show, and we have a number, 1300 8 Broad. We're not 100% sure it's working, but if you're watching and you feel like giving us a call, 1300 8 Broad is the number, and Cess would be answering that call. So we are very pleased to be here on this day. We were going to be speaking with a caller, and I think, have we got her there? Have we got Lisa there? I'm wondering if she's going to be there. No. Oh, Lisa! Hello. I can hear you, and I'm so excited to welcome you as our first caller on Broad Radio. Ange, can you hear Lisa?
I can't hear Lisa, but you'll be able to paraphrase what Lisa is saying for me, please.
It's all very much an experimentation, and I'm not even sure whether our viewers and listeners can hear Lisa. Lisa, I want you... So we've been Facebooking, you and I, Lisa, and... you reached out to me because you said a very interesting thing about how you're feeling as a woman, you know, in your late 30s, early 40s. Can you share what that was? Mm-hmm.
Jo, I'm not sure our listeners and viewers can hear Lisa.
No, I think that's... I think you're exactly right. Lisa, I can hear you, and I can tell everyone that what you just said to me was that you're 44 and you're feeling irrelevant, and like you actually... you want to work, but you don't know whether you actually would be welcome into a workplace because you don't even understand your value anymore, having been with two small children raising them. We're going to try again next week with Lisa. We'll see how we go with that one. Thanks so much, Ange, for alerting us to that. Everything is an experiment. And might I say that I have learned a lot about understanding, you know, it doesn't really matter if things don't work out because you can only try.
But there's excitement around doing something new and live. I always love doing live television because of the fear factor. You know, it sort of it makes you feel alive. Anything could go wrong. And, you know, as we're finding today, there could be some technological little hiccups along the way. But look, the other thing I want to say about, and Lisa's touched on this point, is that as you get older, I've found that, becoming a mum as well, I want more flexible work arrangements. And this is another conversation to have. I could not be the full-time working mother doing incredibly long hours that I was doing as a journalist trying to break stories. I need to be able to have that flexibility. And so that's another challenge that comes with, being in your 30s and 40s, is that you are wanting more flexible arrangements.
Yeah. And I think that more and more employers are understanding that that's important if we're going to keep women in the workforce. But some aren't so supportive of that. And that has to change if we're going to try and keep women in the workforce. And as we all know, diversity in the workforce makes you stronger. It's absolutely critical to any workplace.
You get better results as well when you've got, diverse voices around the table trying to solve a problem. You're coming at it from different angles. You're wrestling with it, and you're going to get a better outcome. I mean, business has been saying this for a long time. Sport, my world, was a little slow to sort of pick up on that, but things are finally changing there as well. But it's important. Diversity is, it's more than just a buzzword. We have to live it and not just use it.
Absolutely right. Well, we're going to have more on all of that in coming weeks, and as Broad Radio evolves and as we iron out these little technical issues as we go along. But you know what I would like to do, Ange, and that is welcome one of our other co-hosts for Broad Radio. She's fast becoming my favourite comedian. There she is, Kirsty Webeck. Hi there, Kirsty.
Hello, legends. How are you?
Okay, well, Kirsty, I'm well. I've got to apologise to you. So what happened was before Christmas, and I'll explain to you, before Christmas, I was thinking about what we're going to talk about in the first show, and I knew that Wonder Woman 1984 was opening on Boxing Day, and I loved the first film, and I thought that'd be fun to talk about with Kirsty. So I said, would you like to go along and see it, and then we'll talk about it in the first show. And then I went and saw it, and look, so I read somebody say online yesterday, why is Wonder Woman 1984 called that? And the person underneath it said, because there are 1984 plot holes in the film.
Ouch.
Ouch. Look, the less said about it, the better. But I have to say, Kirsty, I had to text you and say, don't see it. It's just not the 2.5 hours of your life. It's disappointing.
You took one for the team.
I did. But Kirsty...
Joe saw it, so I didn't have to see it. And I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Well, I was really excited when you mentioned it, because when we had that conversation, I was explaining to you how I was wild about superheroes when I was growing up, to the point where I went through this big phase where I wouldn't leave the house dressed in anything other than black undies and red socks pulled up to my knees and no top, because I was really into Astro Boy. And that phase lasted for way too long, but luckily
puberty?
It passed just before uni. But then when I saw the reviews rolling in for Wonder Woman, like just from my friends just going, oh, it's 2.5 hours, you'll never get back, my heart was sinking more and more every time I read a post, because I was like, I've got to go and watch this soon.
Yeah.
But I was saying...
I love superheroes. I mean, who doesn't want to save the world in spandex? I mean, this is something that I've always wanted to do. And my interest in Wonder Woman goes back to Linda Carter.
Yeah, totally.
I wanted to be her, and I kind of thought I was her. I'm probably half her size, but how amazing was she? And who doesn't want a magical lasso as well? I mean, think of the career hiccups that could have been solved by having a magical lasso.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, that you can wrap around people and magically they tell the truth, which I question the science of that.
Yeah,
It
dubious.
seems complex.
Yeah, it's true. So anyway, Kirsty, I have I have a 90-minute rule, right? Whereas if a film is no good, I leave after 90 minutes. That's it. I don't care how much is there left to watch. But if I had done that, I would have missed the first action scene in an action film. We had to wait that long. Anyway,
Wow.
the less said about it, the better. So I'm glad that we're still on talking terms.
We're all good. I actually, now knowing that you've got that 90-minute rule, I've actually got this incredible respect for that, because I think there is an awful cringy feeling to getting up and leaving a film. I personally have to really psych myself up to do it, and I've only been able to do it twice.
Really?
So I love that you've got that rule and you're just like, nah, I'm out.
Yeah, because life is too short, right? That's the first
Definitely.
thing. And the second thing, I start to get really cross, because you would be amazed when you actually start thinking about it. You'd be amazed how many really average films go for 2 hours and more. Like The Wedding Crashers. Now, that film does not need to be longer than 90 minutes, right? So I just got to the point where I was like, well, that's it. I'll give you 90 minutes, and if you're no good, I'm out.
And all
I love
the
it.
money that gets thrown at these blockbusters as well. I mean, these are not sort of cheap, independent thrillers. I mean, these are blockbusters. There's no excuse.
Well, it's
We demand better.
yeah, that's
We
right.
do.
Yes. Anyway, so Kirsty, we'll move on from that and very quickly tell us, how was your Christmas? I understand you got an awesome Christmas present. No need to boast, but okay.
Yeah, I've come on exclusively today to boast about my Christmas present. I got the best Christmas present that I think I've ever received, in the form of a motor scooter. So my partner told me a few weeks before Christmas that if I got my L plates before Christmas, she would buy me a motor scooter, because I'm constantly complaining about trying to park around stand-up comedy gigs, particularly if I've got several in one night. So she was like, well, if you had a scooter, you'd park out the front of the venue and then you'd just hoon off afterwards. Not hoon, drive very sensibly and safely, actually.
So
What a cool
the
present.
scooter, is it like a Vespa? Are you suddenly
Yeah.
very, very
Yeah.
kind of, exotic when you get on your scooter?
It actually is, yeah. I got so similar ilk to that, to a Vespa. I got, it's an electric blue Peugeot scooter. And I'm obsessed with it. It's probably the fanciest thing I've ever owned. I'm not a very fancy person. And I like to pop downstairs and just look at it several times a day when I'm not riding it.
Yeah. I want to visit your scooter. Just
You
go
have
sort
to.
of just go and give it a little little rub.
Yeah, everybody's always like, can I sit on it? Like, I think that's how I'm going to pivot this year, like just as another revenue stream with stand-up. I'm just going to get people over, and like a pony ride, they can pay $2 and get up on the back of the...
Oh, look at that. Is it like that? Ro, hang on. What did you do? I'm so
See you on that.
It's not exactly that, but it's similar. And Ro, what kind of sorcery is this? You've outdone yourself.
You see?
Do you
it's the
feel
first
safe?
joke.
Well, yeah, that's a very good question. Currently not quite, just through confidence, but I actually rode one for 5 years in my 20s when I lived in Taiwan, and it was pandemonium on the roads over there. And I think the main difference for me here is that I'm aware that there are a lot less scooters on the road, so people are less aware of them. So, yeah, I mean, it's getting better with, a lot of delivery drivers, and a lot of people are buying them now for commuting. So it is getting better. But in Taiwan, even though there were millions on the road at all times, and it was just the most chaotic energy ever, everybody was well aware of them because there were millions even. So, yeah, a strange situation in that you felt safer on the road there because everyone knew there was a scooter going to be there. So I'm getting there. It's just, I think it's mostly a confidence thing at this stage. And also tram tracks, what are they doing?
Yes, I once got my
was
tyres caught
pesky.
in a tram track in Amsterdam, push bike tyres, and I just got stuck, and the bike took off, and I just very casually stepped off rather than fall as that happened. But yeah, they're dangerous.
Oh, I wish I was that graceful. I got my bike tyres stuck in the tram track in Footscray once and just absolutely annihilated myself straight over the handlebars. It was not good.
Well,
When
we're
I
gonna
first
see-
came here from Adelaide, no one told me about the tram situation, and I didn't know you had to stop. I almost wiped out 2 people the first week I arrived in Melbourne.
Oh, yeah.
Thankfully, no one really gives you a welcome to Melbourne. Here's the checklist. Hook turns, trams, more traffic. So you have to sort of just learn as you're going along.
Yeah, and I remember
got it
even in the
up.
car how scary it was. Yeah, because I'm not originally from Melbourne either. And I remember how terrifying it was for months. Every time there was a tram nearby, you were like, what do I do?
Yes, trams are terrifying, and the pedestrians that get off them. And now it seems, Ange, I'm worried about you on the road as well, so I've got to look out for you.
No, I'm all right, but that just reminds me, you talked about your favourite Christmas present. This is sort of within the same theme as transport. My dad's a very practical man, and I remember for Christmas one year, he gave me a steering lock for my car.
Wow.
And I had to pretend to be excited. A steering lock. What a terribly boring Christmas present.
It is a terribly boring Christmas present.
He gave you the gift of not having your vehicle stolen, Ange.
They were a real thing back in the day, those steering locks.
Yeah,
Not anymore.
absolutely. I had one because otherwise your car would get stolen. That was back in the day when cars just got stolen. That's how old we are.
Constantly.
There was there's not even an alarm in the car. It's
true.
It's pretty standard. Well, Kirsty, I look forward to seeing you in your leathers. Do you wear leathers on your bike?
Not quite. Very safe clothing, but not quite leathers. I don't know if we're ready for how tough I'd look.
All right, well, watch out for Kirsty on the roads. If you see her, she's a novice. She's doing her best. We'll see you again soon, Kirsty.
See you soon. Thanks, legends.
Okay.
Bye.
In just a moment, we're going to be joined by Shaynna Blaze, who is going to share with us a brand new venture, a charity that she has started to join the fight against violence against women. That's just after this.
In your arena, there's only one race to win. Your own. You never stop, never quit, never look back. You push and test your limits until there are none left. Fuel your performance with INC Dynamic Way to keep you going.
Broad Radio. Talking inspo we love, info we need, and sharing more of us. Watch and listen live every Tuesday 9am Australian Eastern Daylight Savings Time at broadradio.com.au or find us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube and LinkedIn at Broad Radio Oz. Talk to us live. Call on 1300 8 Broad. Catch up on demand anytime, anywhere, every time, everywhere. On the train, we'll be here. 2 a.m. existential crisis? We've got you covered. Broad Radio. Here for more.
Recording.
Well, we know her as the much-loved judge on The Block, of course, host of Selling Houses Australia, and we know that she is going to own Celebrity Apprentice like a boss in 2021. But did you know that Shaynna Blaze has launched a brand new charity? It's called Voice of Change, and she is joining the fight against violence against women. And we're so pleased that she's joining us as our very first guest on Broad Radio. Shaynna Blaze, what a delight to see you.
Good morning. Thanks for having me. I'm very excited to be on the very first broadcast. Congratulations.
Well, congratulations to you, Shaynna, for your venture as well with Voice of Change. It's a really important thing that you're doing. Can you tell us about it?
Well, hi, Ange, of course. You're on the screen too. Nice to see you.
Good to see you.
It came about from a movie that we created. So with my kids, we started a movie. It was only meant to be a short and turned into a feature. And it came about from being an ambassador of Safe Steps, which is a candlelight vigil for the every 12 months they do a candlelight vigil for all the women and children that have been murdered by a partner. And very, very confronting. And it's not till the end when they do the roll call and you sit there and you see all these young girls, 16, they were in year 12, and holding their candles. And all I could think of was these girls are going out into the world in possibly already in their very first important relationship, and what's going to come of that? The statistics are very high that I'm looking at these young girls there, and some of them may not be here in the next 2-3 years or 4 years, 10 years. So we decided to do the movie. We tried to get grants, we couldn't. And so an EP, what I found out with an EP is you make sure you finish it and finance it, and that was bloody hard. But yeah, once we were filming the movie, it was a very small, closed set, and everybody that was involved in it was incredibly moved and touched. And the thoughts and the discussions behind the scenes with the crew was either people coming out and saying, that actually happened to me, or I grew up in that situation. And then people on the other side going, I feel sheltered and I feel guilty because I didn't know this actually happened. And I sort of thought it was far removed from my life. What can I do about it? So there's 3 very strong reactions there. And it wasn't until we completed the movie and we were thinking about doing an impact marketing campaign and what was the research. And, we went to the police commissioner and we went to, the pointy end, as they call it, of women in refuges, and into people creating courses and relationships, and into schools, and just speaking with the main people saying, what do you want to see? What do you know? And rather than an impact marketing campaign, we just sat there and went, wow, I sort of feel like we've got a social responsibility with this movie. We can't just dump this strong message and walk away. So charity was born. And then, my daughter said, Carly, who's one of the filmmakers, she said, Mum, this is a massive commitment. And it is. It's a massive commitment. And I'm committed to changing society, bringing people together. And because Voice of Change is using the arts and the movie, we know how strong messages there are in movies, documentaries. It's what you do with it once that's dropped. It is bringing together professionals, bringing together the community, schools, and going into corporates. That's a big thing, getting into men's sports, getting into male-dominated industries like trades, and I work in the building industry. Very big male-dominated areas that need talking, and we need to come together, and it can't be brushed under the carpet. We've already had, what are we in, Jan 4th, 5th. We've already had our first death. Yeah. Like, wow. It's just, this woman is a statistic, and it's just horrendous. So it's there, and we have to make change as a community in our workplace, our school, our learning. And already the government last year has reduced the funding of relationships that Rosie Batty fought so hard to get into our schools. It's been reduced by half. The message is reduced by half in our schools now. So it takes private charities now to make a change.
Well, Shaynna, thank you and your family for putting your time and energy into this. As you said, it is really important. In my normal world of sport, a lot of work has been done to try and change the attitudes that give rise to violence against women. That is the key to it, isn't it? Changing attitudes. How are you going to go about that? How are you going to convince men to stop being bystanders in this and to become part of the solution?
I think the thing is to get them into the discussion, and what we want to do when we take the movie into workplace environments and take it into sports environments, that we have them involved in the conversation. And we're actually working with professionals in creating courses. They create courses of awareness and actually action and what you do. And what we're trying to do is create calling points of when you see something, what you need to say to call it out, how you call it out. If you actually feel like that you could be in that situation where you're doing the wrong thing, how do you get rid of the shame of actually seeking help? And that's a big thing too, that, you know, there's a lot of men out there that feel like that they have to be this person and they don't know how to control their anger. And unfortunately, there's only a lot of courses and a lot of situations where men have got, they've either been to jail or they've been, been fined or they've been taken to court and they've been forced into courses about change and behaviour. We want to get to people before that, before they get anger management control. We need to have courses made aware of. We need courses funded, and we need open discussions in schools. We need discussions with 15 and 16-year-old boys and girls about what's important and what's acceptable, what's not acceptable. And so making that change is not just awareness in the environments of sport and male-dominated industries, but getting into schools so that once they get into those male-dominated industries, they have some sort of communication skills and some sort of way to control their anger, but also of what to know as a woman, how many times as a young girl that you can say, no, this isn't acceptable, and walk away. You know, I don't know about you, but as a woman, the amount of times I've just like, oh, they've had a troubled past, they're misunderstood, but that they have to own that. You can't save all these men yourself. The men have to take responsibility.
Yeah, I think too, Shaynna, and when we're talking about those beginning, the start of the cycle and those early signs, we're talking about what now is being described as coercive control. So instances where perhaps up until now we've never had the language of calling it abuse. So whether it's manipulation or isolation or financial control or even, obsessive attachment to someone, that is a warning sign as well. And I suppose there's a really important role that you're playing in the arts, whereby you're opening that conversation and allowing people to maybe suddenly realise that what they have been subjected to, that behaviour was not been okay.
Yeah, and I think the thing is, coercive control is such a big thing that's come out at the moment. It's just been passed as a law in Scotland, and the government in Brisbane and in Queensland are talking to the same people that created those laws to try and bring that into Brisbane, which is really exciting. So as soon as one state creates that, the next need to follow. Those signs are so subtle that you get caught up in them, that you don't think it could happen to you. And I think there's a lot of intelligent professional women out there that don't think it would happen to them, and it does. And I remember putting it out there just on LinkedIn that I was doing this movie and doing this charity, and the amount of women that came into my private DM that I've only connected to, but I have never really spoken to, that just said that, thank you for doing this. This is my life, and I would be very happy to use my story, but I don't want my name out there. And you don't have to tell people your full story with your name attached, because coercive control happens to so many people, and it happens to men too. It doesn't just happen to women. And there's a lot of shame attached with being a victim, and I think that shame needs to go. But education of what coercive control is, education of what we need to do in the arts is so important, because the arts isn't about being on a soapbox. And when you're on a soapbox and you're being very dogmatic and you're forcing rules down people's throat, people reject. But using the arts as a storyteller with professional collateral to support it is a message you can't walk away from.
I found one of the barriers to change is this knee-jerk response, not all men. How can we break that down? Because that is critical. We want men having these conversations with other men. They've got to just forget about the not all men hashtag.
Yeah, and I think that's really sad, because it's almost my knee-jerk reaction to go, well, what are you doing about it? If you're not one of them men, what are you doing? So I've got to be careful of my knee-jerk reaction. And it's about giving the tools and the education. Yes, there isn't, no one is about men bashing. I love men, and I've got the most amazing son. My son wrote this movie. And he plays the antagonist, and that's his way of stepping up, of just saying, well, I'm a man and I could be capable of this, and I'll do everything in my right not to be that person. And I think that's the main thing. No, it's not all men, but what are you doing about it? Are you calling out your mates? Are you calling out what's going on? Are you stepping in at a party? Like, how many times have you been at a party where the husband or the partner yells at somebody and treats them like dirt, and the woman just, it happened to me growing up, and it happened to me witnessing, parents and family. Like, it wasn't my parents, it was other families, and you just sit there and you just think, wow, it's really killed the mood. And all of a sudden, this one couple's argument takes over the whole mood of the family and takes over the whole mood of the party. Well, what's everyone in the party going to do about that? Oh, I'm embarrassed to call out that person that's actually changed the vibe of 30 people in that room. We need the tools to do that and how to do it safely. So that's what we're looking at doing, is to create tools with professionals of what do you say, when do you step in, and make it safe for you as well. And I think that's the biggest thing. People do want to step in, but they're terrified of what's going to happen to them as well. Yeah. And to be able to step in safely, not cross the line and jeopardise, because what can happen is that once that couple go home, it might actually be worse. By you stepping in could actually be the wrong thing. So it's going to take a while, and we've got to do it as a community, but we've got to have a similar message. And we had a campaign just on New Year's Eve, I don't know if you saw it, where we had quite a few charities come together with the same words and the same message. And I think that's really important. What we were doing in research, finding out there's all these great areas of people doing great things, but no one's talking the same language. So already I'm seeing people that want to stand up against domestic violence wanting to come together. And I think that's how we make the difference, is we all have to have the same message.
Yeah. So, Shaynna, the movie is called The Fort, and your son Jesse and your daughter Carly made it together. We do have a trailer, which we're going to play that row. I think we're going to get that together. Let's have a look at it.
Ooh.
Is everything all right?
Yeah, fine.
Don't worry, I'll save you.
If Auntie Mary asks why she needed to give you a lift to school, just Dad had to go to work.
Did he?
That's very
powerful.
Shaynna, congratulations to you and both your children for creating this film. How was it working together as a family?
It was really exciting, exciting. Stepping back was what I had to do, because it was their movie, essentially. I was the EP. I was the person trying to make sure that all the dots were being joined behind the scenes. Seeing them together, like Jess wrote it, we all sat down and we brainstormed it all together, the three of us, coming together as a family, and we set our boundaries before we started filming. And, because, I am the sort of, the head, I had to step back, the kids had to take control, but they had to work together as a relationship, because they were going to be co-directing together in front of the whole crew. And so they had to come together and have their own boundaries as well. And oh my God, the pride that I have of what they've achieved, the message they've created, how they've worked together as a team, and, created something that's going to make a difference is just, it's so hard to describe. It really is. Yeah, I'm so proud of them. They're amazing.
Well, congratulations congratulations. I know how hard it is to make a film, and good on you for making a film that is going to make a difference.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing. Like, we started off making the film because my son is scriptwriter. He's a sound engineer, but he's also an actor. And then my daughter's an editor and writer as well. So we really literally only started it selfishly for career-wise, and, you know, for them to actually, you know, get something out there. And we couldn't get grants. So it's just like, well, let's just do it. Let's just do it. And as you know, making a movie, Ange, like, it's, you know, I knew nothing. And if you ask me would I do it again, I'd probably do a lot differently. But yeah, I'd pretty much go head first. If you wait for a grant, you need it, but we still wouldn't have made the movie. So it's really difficult, but it's pretty life-changing, not just because of the subject. It's life-changing because of a family doing it together, but also singly what I'm doing out of it as a charity. So yeah, would I recommend it to everybody? It's very hard.
Yeah. Would you make a movie? I don't know. I've got two people on the screen who are or have made a film, and I'm not diving in, but we're making broad radio. So, you know, sometimes you've got to just dive in and do things regardless.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see the film, Shaynna, and also we're going to see you on Celebrity Apprentice this year in the name of Voice of Change. You're there battling it out for your charity, yeah?
Yeah, I originally said no because of, well, I've seen I adore the show. It's been one of my favourites, but I remember quite, you know, in the other series that there is a lot of bullying and there's a lot of, they pit people against each other for drama's sake. And I initially said no to that. I said, no, not interested. And then that night I slept on it and I thought, oh, hang on a minute. This is what I'm fighting against. I'm fighting against this stereotype of the hysterical woman. I'm fighting against the stereotype of bullying, pitting against each other. But also my charity has that much money and no one's ever heard of my charity. So whatever I do, it's going to get recognised. Even if I don't make $1, at least people know why I'm there. So put my big girl pants on. And had no work on anyway because I was in stage 4 lockdown with you guys in Melbourne. So I just went, right, well, here I go. So I treated it as an adventure. And I have to say that it surprised me because everyone there was there for the right reason. Everyone was there for the charity. Everyone was so multi-skilled that you just walk in and you go, this is going to be tough. And it was really tough. Like I've got to say it was not an easy time there at all, but made some beautiful friendships out of it. I think you're just going to be surprised how incredible all these people are. I feel very honoured to be with that group of people because most people were there because they didn't have any work, the way the industry is. And there you go, the arts. Most people there were business-minded, but the arts tells a lot of story. And here's people giving up all their time for charity. The arts just do so much for messages and for entertainment. And, you know, as we know, the arts were, you know, left out of the equation in COVID. And I just think, you know, people need to really stand up and realise how much the arts do. And this is why I'm so proud of the charity too. It's based around the arts.
Amazing. Shaynna, thank you so much. Do check out voiceofchangeau.org. Check out voiceofchangeau.org. That is Shaynna's brand new charity, and we're just so grateful to you for the work that you're putting in. We can't wait to see you on Celebrity Apprentice as well. Shaynna, great to have you on the show.
Thank you so much, and congratulations to both of you. This is just incredible, and good luck with it. And I can't wait to see you girls just rise. And thanks for bringing women's voices to radio.
Thanks so much, Shaynna. In just a moment, and you're going to tell us about the movie that you are making, actually, about T20 cricket.
I might need to lie down first.
Grab a cup of tea. We're here for you, okay, Ange? We want to hear all about it. That's just after this.
This is Broad Radio. For you, by you.
Broad Radio.
Here for more.
So, Ange, we want to hear all about the documentary that you have made about that amazing moment on International Women's Day last year. just before
Yeah.
the COVID lockdown and everything. But before we get to that, I just want to mention thank you so much to Chris Mannix, who has put a little comment on YouTube saying, oh, wow, I think I'll choose The Fort over Wonder Woman 1984. Which, yeah, I kind of agree with that too. But there are many films
I'm with
out
you,
there.
Chris.
Yeah, yeah. There are many films out there to explore, and tell us about the one that you are making, Ange.
Well, I'm in the final days of it, Joe. So it's been a very big week with the launch of Broad Radio. And then towards the end of the week, I'm going to deliver my 2-hour documentary. It has a global streaming release, which I'm very excited about. But we tell the story of the Women's T20 World Cup, but not just the actual tournament. It's what happened 4 years before the tournament. And that was a group of people, cricket officials, coming together and saying, you know what, let's have a crack at setting a new world record for attendance at a women's sporting event. I mean, it was bold and courageous and brave and slightly crazy. And these were some men in cricket at an Indian restaurant in Melbourne. They came up with this idea. Let's have a go at it. And of course, you know, in our documentary, we look at the genesis of the idea, but then also how did the players feel? How did the Australian women, who were the number one team in the world, they had the pressure of favouritism going into the World Cup, how did this impact as well? You know, the pressure, the added layer of having to set this or have a, you know, good crack at the world record. So we explore the team's response to it. And then, you know, we get to the World Cup, and those who follow cricket may remember that things didn't go according to plan for Australia. Great for filmmakers when it doesn't go according to plan, because you get all the drama. But there were a couple of moments when I looked at my co-producer, Nicole, and I said, this may have been a mistake, because they're not travelling very well. And, you know, when you invest a lot of time into an idea, whether it's Broad Radio or, you know, my film, The Record, you just want it to work. Yeah. And it was a pretty stressful time. But, yeah, I'm about to give birth to it. And as I've said to others, I've given birth to an actual child. Giving birth to a film is a lot harder.
Certainly goes for a lot longer.
Like the actual
creation of that film. But that was an incredible moment on International Women's Day at the MCG. Yeah. Of course, Katy Perry sang, and there was an incredible celebration in the air. But it was a record in so many ways, because for women's sport to have so many eyes on it, that was amazing.
Well, it was absolutely an Australian record. It blew that one out of the water. But it was a very important night for sport and society. And I've seen my film so many times, but there is a moment in the second half of it that I know it's coming, but I tear up every time I see it. It was just so significant. And for me, as someone who has fought for equality in sport for 25 years, what this showed was that, you know what, if the will is there to invest in women, and if the will is there to promote them properly, you can achieve great things. You know, 86,000 people turned up that night. They knew it was on, you know, it was all done the way it should be done. We can level the sporting landscape. We absolutely can do it, but you have to want to do it. Yeah. And this is where it's been stuck for many decades, is the will hasn't been there. And girls deserve the same opportunities in sport as boys. They deserve to be a big part of the conversation, an equal part of the conversation. And that night has changed things forever. And it'll be one of my favourite nights of my life, because it was a game changer for girls and women. And, you know, boys and men, families in the crowd, they saw a great show, and they understand now that women deserve to play on the big stage of the MCG.
Yeah.
So yeah,
We can't
really
wait to
proud
see
of
the
it.
film, Ange. I
Oh
know
my
it'll
God,
be released at
you're
some
going
point
to
in the
love it, and you
next
don't have to
few
love.
months.
Sorry, you don't have to love cricket
Oh, well,
to get something out of this,
I will
because I
say,
know that that's not your number one sport.
it's not my
It's
one-to-one.
about number 58.
Yeah. But that night was very moving for me as well. It was an extraordinary moment in history.
Yeah.
And yeah, for little girls who love playing any kind of sport, to be able to see women on the MCG, so special and so critical. But then what a crazy year it was, of course, because not long after that, we were in lockdown. COVID arrived in this country, and all of us have come out of, I'm sure you would agree with me, Ange, a year that we would like to forget in 2020. And now we're going into 2021, and I wonder, Ange, how are you feeling about, I mean, we've had some further COVID developments over the last week, and I want to acknowledge that there are people in all parts of the country experiencing COVID in a different way, but it affects all of us in one way or another. How are you feeling, Ange, going into 2021?
I can't help but put a line underneath 2020, like so many other people are doing. But there is a voice in my head saying, well, how do I know that it's going to be any better than the previous year? But I also think that we've learnt, and we're going to explore this with our next guest, but I think there were lessons that we learned as well last year about community and focusing on the we rather than the I. And I hope that that's going to carry over into this year.
Well, exactly right. You do mention our next guest, because there are ways that we can set ourselves up for more optimism and more positivity, we hope, going into the next 12 months, even though we don't know exactly what it will hold for us. So to tell us how we may be able to set up some strategies, we are joined by behavioural scientist Dr. Juliette Tobias-Webb. Good morning, Juliette.
Good morning.
It's so lovely to see you. I'm imagining you're getting a lot of people saying, oh my goodness, last year was horrific, I want to start again, but there's a real fear that we're going backwards again. Is that normal?
Yes, look, I've been quite interested in this as a behavioural scientist. We get to the end of the year and psychologically we start planning for a new year, and we think about what's called this fresh start effect, where we have the opportunity to start the year fresh, we set goals and try and achieve those. And the really interesting thing at the moment is that we were all leading up to 2021 thinking the difficulties that we faced in 2020 were over and we're going to have this fresh start. But with the outbreak that's happened in Sydney and in Melbourne in terms of COVID-19, it's starting to challenge our perceptions of a fresh start, so to speak, or the ability to be quite optimistic about the new year.
So what do we do about that?
Yeah,
definitely. So look, there are a number of things. We can still harness what psychologists call this fresh start effect. So basically that is, we see temporal landmarks, so the beginning of the week, the beginning of the month, or the beginning of the new year, as these opportunities to have a fresh start, have a blank slate, and actually therefore change some of the behaviours that you want to change. If you are performing behaviours that you really enjoy and that you're already tracking, you don't want to focus on the fresh start because it takes you away from your progress. So really thinking about that, it's starting to reevaluate your goals, look back into what happened in 2020 and focus on what can you actually start to change and how you might move forward with those changes.
Juliette, I'm hoping that we all learned a bit more about community last year. I have no science to back this up, but anecdotally, I think I've picked up on the fact that we became a bit less selfish because we had to get down to the zero figures, and in Victoria, we had to work together for that to happen. We had to wear our masks and socially distance and, school our kids at home and all those kinds of things. Am I being too optimistic to say that there's going to be some lasting effect of that into the years to come?
I guess we don't know yet. So if people's behaviours are changing habitually, so if you're kind, it has hugely beneficial effects to yourself and to others. But also we see that social support in itself is a huge resilient tactic across financial well-being, across mental well-being, even across physical well-being. So harnessing those kind of community connections is really important. It will be interesting to see how that continues, as I said. The interesting thing about COVID is we're learning how to build community or connections, but in a different way. So previously, by the same psychological strategies are there in terms of how we want to interact with people, because we're doing it a little bit differently now online, we have to learn new ways to get the same sort of connections. So it'll be interesting to see if we continue to use those new ways in the future.
And is this the sort of thing that we might set up as a strategy for ourselves, knowing that we may have down times going into 2021? Are there ways that we can form contingencies to sort of prepare ourselves for those harder times that might end up coming our way?
Yes, definitely. So we're moving into, again, an uncertain environment, and the issue that we all have with uncertainty is that we struggle with control over our environment. So even from when we're very young, we have a sense of control. If I pick up a pen and I use it, then I learn how to use that in future. And so at the moment, our ability to control and plan things is challenged, and therefore we can get a sense of kind of helplessness or depression at time, or these feelings of struggle. So it's about starting to think about how to cope with those. So whether or not in the psychological research we talk about if-then plans or implementation intentions, it's called, and it's about really planning for all possible outcomes that you can think about, and then having behavioural strategies for each of those. So for me, it says when X arises, I will do Y. So if you are someone who might go to the fridge when you're stressed, you might start to plan around, okay, so when I'm feeling stressed, I'm going to go for a walk instead. So really starting to think through some of the barriers and mental challenges as well as physical challenges that you may face, and planning for those accordingly so you're better prepared for the uncertainty, but also the potential different situations that you could be exposed to throughout the year.
Yes.
I think we can also, Jo, I was going to say we can also learn from kids about this. And during lockdown, I was dreading home learning, but I learned something from my 7-year-old, because on a Wednesday at his school, it's called Wellbeing Wednesday, and they have subjects around well-being. And on one particular Wednesday, it was about optimism, and how I felt so good that kids, and he's 7, are learning about looking at things a little differently. And he was a constant reminder for me throughout this whole process to be a little bit brighter with my outlook. Do we know anything about how kids sort of have come out of last year?
So there's a little bit of work around kids and the resiliency around that, but we're still kind of within the COVID mix. So there's still a lot more for us to learn, and there's studies. The other thing is it's kind of hard to understand the impact when there's no kind of experimental conditions where some kids are exposed to it and some kids aren't. The really interesting thing that I think you were touching on with optimism is often when we face challenges, we often think of them as personal. So this is because of something that I've done. This is going to reflect poorly on me. Pervasive. This is going to be impactful across my whole life. So whether or not that's at work as well as at home, and permanent. So this is something that is going to affect me for a long period of time. And actually, optimists and positive psychologists often talk about how do you reframe your thinking around that. And children are very good at this. So they don't see things or challenges as personal. They realise it's part of the circumstance or context that they're going through. It's not perceived as permanent. So actually really starting to reframe their thinking, but we as adults can reframe our thinking around this will pass, and the longer that we kind of persist, the easier that it can get, or the strategy, we build strategies really to overcome things. And then the pervasiveness again. Just because we may be facing challenges in one area of our life because of COVID doesn't mean that you need to face that across the board. So you can focus on the different types of identities, whether or not you want to be a better parent, if your work is challenging, or whether or not you want to put some more time into your work identities or your friendship identities and whatnot. So I really like the idea of thinking about how you reframe your mindset to be more optimistic.
Yes, I think that one of the byproducts of the last however many months it's been since this all started unfolding in our world, is that we've really started to assess who we are and the things that we maybe are good at and the things that maybe we aren't so good at. And I've seen that as an opportunity to compartmentalise my life a little bit and go, well, let's focus on those positive things, and those things that aren't really supportive to me, I'm going to maybe focus on doing that less, which is a different thing for me. It's certainly a big growth for me at 48. So that's been one of the positives, and that maybe going into the next year, there's more growth for us, would you say, Juliette?
Yes, researchers have actually looked at this as well. So there's a kind of theory that's around post-traumatic growth. And that is when you go through really stressful circumstances, and particularly a lot of the research is around trauma, but it can be applied to situations like COVID. If you believe that you can get through it, and you do get through it, you actually experience growth and you become stronger. The other thing that you're very good at from a psychological point of view is your memory changes itself over time. So if you think about when you've been through a terrible holiday, and then actually a few weeks later you talk about how great that holiday was and whatnot. So really when we're going through these stressful times, we're not only going to grow, but we are going to think differently about them once we come out the other end.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Dr. Juliette Tobias-Webb, who is a superstar of STEM. We've had a superstar on our show, Ange.
Yes. Good on. That's fantastic, because, well, there's another conversation about getting more women and girls interested in STEM. So you are a role model for them. That's fantastic.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Juliette. You have a great day. Now, Ange, we are coming to the end of the show, but I just have to mention a couple of things. Firstly, we run a weekly survey. It's called More to Say survey, because we know that women have more to say, and we really value your experiences and your opinions, and we want to get them on the show. So we're doing a weekly survey, which came to a close last night. There's a new one up that you can go to broadradio.com.au and fill in that survey, and you go in the running for a prize. Thanks to our friends at Happy Collective, you go in the running to win a Happy Pack, which includes a pleasure device, and we were very happy to let our first winner know last night, and she was very happy to receive that Happy Pack. There's a lot of smiles all around. But there's a new survey there that you can go to, and I'm going to pose the question to you, Ange. The question is, we know work-life balance is important, but is it possible? How much me time do you give yourself? So it's multiple choice. I make time every week because it benefits me and those around me. I leave it up to chance, which means not often, never, but that's cool because I love my work. Or I wish, but other people always take priority. Which would be your selection there?
This is the wrong week to ask me that, because I've got way too much work on. Can you ask me that in a couple of weeks' time when I'm lying on a beach reading a piece of fiction?
Yes, I will ask you then. I think that's often the way it works in our world, because we have sessional work, but I think all women kind of struggle to make me time. So I'm interested to hear what people's thoughts are there, and do go to broadradio.com.au and enter that, because you'll win yourself, perhaps you'll see, a little Happy Pack thanks to Happy Collective. And it's been so delightful to spend this first show with you.
It's been fabulous. I'm having a great time, and I'm delighted that we've got it up and running. it's been a big plan of yours for a long time now. So thanks for choosing me as one of your broads.
Look, it was a
It's
no-brainer.
great to
I
be on
love your
board.
ideas and I love your mind, and we're going to have a lot of fun. So it's strength to strength
Yeah.
from here. Next week on the show, we're going to be joined by Alison Falk, who is one of the choreographers for Magic Mike, and Cindy Darnell, who is a sexologist. And we're going to be unpacking what it is to seek a satisfying sex life in your relationships. So that's going to be a really interesting conversation. And if you are in New South Wales, if you tune in next week, you win yourself a double pass to go and see Magic Mike. Alrighty, well, of course, you can check us out and follow us at all of our social media. That's at Broad Radio Oz. And thanks again, Ange, and we'll see you all next week.